All right, so there's this thing you were told was basically a law of physics, right up there with gravity and the Wi-Fi always goes out during the important part. The rule went like this. You work your whole life, you raise your kids in some big 4-bedroom house with a lawn you secretly hate mowing, and then, the moment the last kid moves out and stops eating you out of house and home, you sell the big place, you buy something small and cute, you pocket a fat pile of cash, and you ride off into the retirement sunset. Maybe a condo. Maybe something with the word villa in the name that is absolutely not a villa. That was the plan. The great American downsize. Sell high, buy small, print money, buy a boat you'll use twice. Here's the plot twist. That dramatic downsize, it's mostly not happening anymore. The National Association of Realtors actually tracked what people are doing, not what they say on a Sunday afternoon when they're annoyed at their own garage. And here's what they found. The typical younger boomer, ages 61 to 70, who sold a 2,000 square foot home, turned around and bought another home that was also 2,000 square feet. Net change, 0. Same size. They packed up an entire house, hired the movers, lost their minds over the bubble wrap, and landed in a home the exact same size as the one they left. So the big dramatic sell half your house downsize that every retirement calculator assumes you're going to do, for a whole lot of people it's just not the plan anymore. And today we're getting into exactly why. Let's go. Reason 1. The math stopped mathing. Downsizing often doesn't save the money it used to. Sometimes it barely saves anything, and that quietly breaks the whole spell. Think about what has to happen for a downsize to pay off. You need a smaller home that's meaningfully cheaper than your current one. That's the entire engine of the plan. But home prices went bananas, and not just for the big 4 bedrooms. They went up for everything. That cute little 2-bedroom downsized cottage you were eyeing, it appreciated too. Sometimes faster, because everybody and their retired uncle wants that exact house. The NAR numbers show it plainly. Sellers over 60 who did move sold for a median of around $433,000 and bought for around $409,000. So yes, a little cheaper, but only by about 24 grand. And that gap, it vanishes the second real life shows up. Because moving isn't free. The real estate commission alone can be 5 or 6% of the sale price. There goes a big bite. Then the movers. Then closing costs on the new place. Then the, well, while we're here, renovations. Because the new house needs new floors. And if it's got new floors, it needs new paint. And if it's got new paint, suddenly you're looking at the kitchen thinking, might as well. By the time the dust settles, the money you supposedly freed up by downsizing is a rounding error. You didn't unlock a nest egg, you funded a very expensive game of musical chairs. The dream was sell big, buy small, keep the change. The reality is sell big, buy roughly the same, keep almost none of the change, and now you're mad the new garage is smaller. When the financial reason to do a thing evaporates, people stop doing the thing. Shocking, I know. This is advanced economics. Reason 2, the golden handcuffs. And this is so perfectly cosmically unfair, I almost respect it. It's the mortgage lock-in effect. A whole lot of homeowners either bought or refinanced back when interest rates were sitting at 2-point-something, 3%. A rate that belongs in a museum. Rates like that don't exist right now. They're mythical. They're the Bigfoot of personal finance. So picture it. You've got a home with a 3% mortgage on it, and someone chirps, you should downsize, sell this and buy something smaller. And you go, okay, and what's the rate on the new loan? And they go, let's not focus on that. Because here's the trap. To move, you'd give up your incredibly cheap loan and take on a new one at today's much higher rate, and the math gets ugly fast. You could move into a smaller, cheaper house and still end up with a bigger monthly payment purely because the interest rate on the new loan is so much higher than the fossil you've got locked in. Let me put real-ish numbers on it, because this is the part that breaks people's brains. Say you've got a balance at 3%, and your payment is comfy. Now you go buy a place that costs less money, but the loan on it is at what, 6, 7%? That interest rate can more than double the cost of borrowing every single dollar. So the cheaper house comes with a payment that's higher than the bigger house you already own, free and clear of that new rate. You'd be paying more per month for less house on purpose. Downsize your house, upsize your payment. That's not a plan, that's a prank. So people stay put and cling to that low rate like it's the last slice of pizza. And honestly, good for them. That 3% mortgage is a family heirloom now. That's going in the will. This is also a big reason the whole housing market feels frozen. That rate gap has discouraged a lot of people across every age group, not just retirees, from selling and moving at all, which keeps inventory tight for everybody. Comfortable handcuffs, but handcuffs. Reason 3, They're rich in house. This is where it gets kind of wild. A big chunk of retirees aren't downsizing because, frankly, they don't have to. They're sitting on a mountain of home equity so large it has its own weather system. Here's the number that stopped me. As of the first quarter of 2026, homeowners aged 62 and up are collectively holding a record, hear this, $14.92 trillion in home equity. Trillion with a T. That's according to the latest NRMLA and RiskSpan Index, and it's an all-time high. And on top of that, research from Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies found the median homeowner 65 and older is sitting on roughly $250,000 in equity in the house alone. Think about what that does to the psychology. The old downsizing plan was for people who needed to unlock their equity to survive retirement. It was a necessity move. But when you've got that kind of wealth built into your home and other savings, the pressure to sell just melts. And here's the flip. That equity doesn't only remove the pressure to downsize. For some people, it becomes the firepower to not shrink at all. When financially comfortable retirees do buy, a lot of them show up with enormous down payments or pay all cash and calmly steamroll every 32-year-old at the open house. You ever been outbid by a retired couple paying cash? Very specific kind of heartbreak. You brought a pre-approval letter and a dream. They brought a checkbook and the serene energy of people who already owned 3 homes. And this is the quiet plot twist of the whole housing market right now. NAR's own economists have described it as a market split down the middle between people who have decades of home equity and people who don't. If you've owned since the 90s, you're not really shopping the same market as a first-time buyer. You're playing the game on easy mode. No financing contingency, no waiting on the bank, no sweating the interest rate because you're not borrowing at all. That's why boomers have quietly become one of the biggest buyer groups out there, not because they need to move, because they can, on their terms, whenever they feel like it. So for a slice of retirees, the goal was never to minimize square footage. It's to buy the home that fits the retirement they actually want. Big kitchen for the holidays, guest rooms for the grandkids, a whole room for hobbies they picked up during the pandemic and refused to abandon. Sourdough will not die on their watch. Call it right-sizing, not downsizing. Reason 4 is aging in place. Reason number 4 is a little tender, and it's a huge driver. It's aging in place, staying in your own home as you get older, instead of moving somewhere smaller or into a facility. And the demand for it is massive. An AARP survey found that 75% of adults 50 and older want to stay right where they are as they age, 7 out of 4. And 73% want to stay in the same community, same streets, same neighbors, same barista who's known your order for 15 years. And you get it, right? Your home isn't just square footage, it's the doorframe with the pencil marks measuring how tall everyone got. It's muscle memory. You can walk to the bathroom at 3 a.m. in total darkness without stubbing a single toe. That's a superpower you don't keep if you move. Somewhere new, at 3 a.m., you're taking out a wall with your face.
But here's the honest part. Aging in place isn't always the golden hour gardening in the sunshine version. Sometimes people stay not because it's the dream, but because it's the only option that pencils out. One housing expert put it in a way that stuck with me, that we romanticize aging in place, but sometimes it's really just isolation with a paid-off mortgage. Oof, that one's got weight. So, aging in place is partly a beautiful choice and partly a trap. People want to stay, but a lot are also stuck because the alternatives cost too much or don't exist. Which brings us right to the next one. Reason 5. There's nowhere good to go. Even for the retirees who genuinely want to downsize, who are ready, who are done with the big yard, there's a brutal little problem. There's often nothing to buy. Housing analysts, including Redfin, have pointed out that in a lot of markets, there simply aren't enough small, reasonably priced homes for older Americans to downsize into. The sensible little single-story place, good community, fair price, it's the unicorn. Either it doesn't exist near you, or it costs a fortune because 40 other people want that same unicorn, or it comes bolted to a homeowners association with fees that make your eyes water. And then there's the stuff nobody puts on the brochure. Take insurance. Home insurance premiums have been climbing hard, and a huge share of policyholders got hit with a rate hike just this past year. So even the retiree who finds the perfect little place discovers the smaller home comes with an insurance bill that's anything but small, because it's not really about square footage anymore, it's about rebuild costs, weather risk, and a market that's been jacking rates on everybody. Add property taxes that reset when you buy, potential HOA dues, and suddenly your cheaper, simpler life has a monthly nut that rhymes suspiciously with the one you were trying to escape. And then the final final boss, the pure logistical nightmare of moving a lifetime of stuff. Do you know how much stuff accumulates over 30 years? There are boxes in that basement that haven't been opened since a different president was in office. There's a fondue set. There's exercise equipment that became a coat rack in 2009. Downsizing means confronting all of it, and a lot of people take one look at that garage, feel their soul briefly leave their body, and go, you know what? We're staying. Point stands. When moving is expensive, exhausting, and there's nowhere good to land, just staying stops looking like a decision and starts looking like the path of least resistance. Reason 6. The family gravity. Here is a real shift in how families live, the multi-generational home. For some older buyers, the move isn't about less house, it's about room for the family to come back, and not just for Thanksgiving. Adult kids moving back in, grandkids staying over constantly, sometimes the retiree's own aging parents, so you've got 4 generations under one roof, which is either beautiful or a sitcom depending on the day. In NAR's latest data, about 14% of all home buyers bought a multi-generational home. That's roughly 1 in 7, not a fringe thing. It's one of the reasons a chunk of older buyers want more space, not less. And think about what that does to the downsizing plan. You can't shrink into a shoebox if the strategy is everyone comes to our house now. You need the guest rooms. You need the big kitchen. You need to be the hub, the home base, the place where the whole crew lands. It's a sweet logic to it. A lot of folks would rather keep a home big enough to pull the family in than downsize into a place so small the grandkids stop visiting because there's nowhere to sleep but the floor. They're not buying square footage, they're buying the guarantee that people show up, and that's not a bad thing to spend money on.
What this means for you. If you've got that little voice in the back of your head going, we really should downsize, here's what I want you to hear. Maybe your kids have said it. Maybe a friend sold their place and won't shut up about it. And maybe you felt vaguely guilty for not doing it, like you're behind on some assignment life handed you. Here's your permission slip. That guilt is outdated. The plan you were handed was built for a housing market that doesn't exist anymore. Staying isn't you being stubborn or disorganized. For a lot of people, staying is now the financially smarter move. You're not falling behind. The rules changed, and you're reading them correctly. But, important but, not downsizing still needs a plan. The risk isn't that you stay. The risk is that you drift into staying without ever running the numbers and wake up house rich and cash poor, sitting on $250,000 in equity you can't spend, in a home with stairs your knees have started filing complaints about. So the real question isn't downsize or not, it's if I'm staying, how do I make staying work? Think now about single-floor living before you need it. Know what this house actually costs you a year, taxes, insurance, upkeep. Decide whether your equity is a tool you want to tap or a legacy you want to leave. Those are the choices that separate a comfortable retirement in place from a stuck one. The old rule said, sell the big house and cash out. That rule is gone, but the new freedom, the freedom to stay, only pays off if you choose it on purpose instead of defaulting into it. Now, I want to hear from you because you've actually lived this. Most of the reports I read haven't. If you stayed in your home, tell me what tipped it. The mortgage, the memories, the sheer horror of packing up 40 years of stuff. And if you did make a move, I want the honest review. Did the new place deliver, or did you get halfway through the boxes and wonder what on earth you were thinking? And if you're still weighing it, what's the one thing holding you back from deciding? Drop it down below. There's a whole community here in the same spot, and your 2 cents might be exactly what somebody else needs to read today. If this made things make a little more sense, or just made you feel less crazy for not downsizing, do me a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe if you're not already. We break this stuff down every week and keep it human, not homework. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves out there.